have a shifting character. Psalm 95. Throughout most of it, we have the author, a man, telling us, presumably David, telling us that we need to worship and praise God, and we need to shout for joy and humbly thank Him. And just like in verses 3 through 5, he told us why. Now, God steps up to the plate. And through him, God is speaking. And he starts out in verse 7, the last part of verse 7. It says this phrase serves as a dual transition. It serves a dual transitional role in the song. First, it closes the first part of the song. You should shout for joy. You should humbly respect, because He is your Father. He is your shepherd. You are His pasture. He cares for you. Reasons to worship. It says, if you hear His voice today. Second, it opens up the last part of the song, either as a wish, please obey my direction, or a condition. If you would only hear my voice today. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, today, right now. It's a dramatic pause, in effect. And he's saying, you get all these things if you hear my voice today. All right. Now if you take it and you read it with just the second half. If you hear my voice today, this should not happen to you. He separates the jubilance of our praise and worship from the solemn warning that follows in verses 8 through 11. God provides us a warning about our praise and worship. If you would hear, if then. For those of us who went through school, took the algebra classes or some of the geometry classes, if-then statements. If this happens, then this is true. That's what God is saying here. If you hear my word, if you hear my voice. And it's not just hearing the voice. As parents, we do that all the time with our kids. Yeah, I hear you. Our kids do it to us all the time. I hear you. Yeah, Dad, I got it. Yeah, not a problem. Don't worry. I hear you. Next thing you know, they come home with a speeding ticket. It means not only to hear, but to listen with intent. If you take in my word and digest it, think about what I am saying. God desires those who hear His holy word to give their complete attention to what He is saying. To listen obediently. Don't just pay Him lip service when He speaks. Take in what He says. And follow through on His instruction. You can't just stand here and, say, yeah, I got it, God. That happens way too often on Sunday mornings. People walk into church, they hear the pastor speak, and they walk out the door. Monday morning they walk into work and go right back into the same old slide. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. Ask my wife. She sees it happen to me when I go back home. When I go up to Wisconsin and I hang out with my friends for a few days, I slide a little bit. My language slips up. I'm not proud of that. Trust me. Because I try my darndest to get them to follow my lead. Unfortunately, while they may do that, some rubs off on me. And he goes on to provide an example of those who did not hear his voice. The fathers of Israel. Now, this is right after witnessing his power and his love for them during the Exodus, during the first parts of the Exodus. They just saw 10 plagues rain down on Egypt. that no one can explain. To this day, they cannot explain it. 10 plagues, 10 days. They can't explain it. In addition to that, they just walked across the Red Sea. 30 feet of water on either side of them. Just let 1 million people through. And here they are complaining about God. Complaining and whining. Nothing but a bunch of whiners. I do not envy Moses in the least in leading them, because I probably would have used my staff as a shillelagh and bopped them on the head a few times. There's a place in the desert called Meribah and Massah. They were named this by Moses because the people refused to believe that God would relieve their distress if they would only put their full faith in Him. And they're not just historical locations. This is the spot where Moses struck the rock and water came out. But they represent the problems with a person's faith that have persisted through the centuries, rather than seeing God trying to get them to come to Him in their times of needs. Repeatedly, when we're in the middle of it again now, there are terrible things happening in this world. Terrible things. Acts of terrorism, plagues, hunger, drought, famine, natural disaster, man-made disaster, fires, you name it, it's going on in this world. And this world is not, I should say the world isn't, the majority of the world is trying to blame everybody else. We have a weather problem. What's the first thing they say? Oh, it's global warming. Man did it. Even though the science proves them wrong. That's a whole other argument. What happened here, and has happened throughout the centuries, is Israel saw God as being absent from their lives when things went bad. They weren't looking at this as a test from God, as a way for God to bring them closer to Him. They didn't see that. They couldn't see the forest through the trees. All they saw was the problem in front of them. And every time they whined about it, God fixed the problem. And Moses said, isn't God with us? God's with us. God's with us. God's with us. Every time they turn around, the Red Sea, the stone, the manna, the doves, Jericho, you name it. God is with us. God produces adversity in order to humble people. God causes bad things to happen. Not so much that He causes them, but He lets us go through them. He lets us experience them. Why? So that we become dependent on Him. He wants us to come to Him. He wants us to go to God, to Him, and say, God, help me, I can't get through this. He doesn't want us to turn to Joe's Pub, or the adult bookstore, or the internet, or TV, or the poker hall, or bingo, casinos. He doesn't want us to go to those things searching for a way to get out. He wants us to come to Him, yearning for a way to get out. Adversity teaches obedience. In Instead of believing in God's promises and obeying His commands, they refused and disobeyed. God told them, if you do this, this is going to happen. But if you do it this way, that's going to happen. You're going to fall. You walk that way, there's a cliff. You walk this way, there's a bridge. And they always walk that way to the cliff. Like lemmings that follow each other right off the edge. Hunger and thirst in order to provide for their needs. And that has a kind of twofold thing about it. We hunger and thirst physically for our bodies. And God will supply us. He supplied them. Water from the rock, manna from heaven, doves from the sky. All of that supplied for them. You think about it, they wandered in the desert for 40 years and never wore out their shoes. I can't get through 40 months without wearing out a pair of shoes. Think about, it's similar to Jesus' teaching of the woman at the well. He told her He could provide water for life. He's trying to remind them in every hour of need, God supplied their need. Not their want, their need. God supplies a need. Wants are extra. Wants are things that we can, as Ted said, we can do on our own. We can acquire our wants. God will supply our needs and allow for our wants when our needs are met. Israel interpreted every crisis as an occasion for their death.